Dr. Sarah Chen's coffee mug shattered against the observation deck's floor when the Void Stalker materialized from dark space. The creature's crystalline exoskeleton refracted starlight in hypnotic patterns as it unfolded 6 massive appendages, each longer than the largest human capital ships. Her hands trembled as she activated the emergency recording protocols, knowing she was witnessing an event most xenobiologists only saw in recovered footage. The Artaxian merchant vessel never stood a chance. The Void Stalker's neural tendrils pierced their shields like they weren't there, a feat that should have been impossible given current shield technology. Sarah watched through the Curiosity's long-range sensors as the creature methodically dismantled the ship's outer hull, its movements displaying an unsettling intelligence that contradicted everything known about these cosmic predators. "Control, are you seeing this?" Sarah's voice cracked as she transmitted. The attack pattern matches incidents 32 through 46. Precise incisions, systematic disable of life support systems before. The Void Stalker froze mid-strike. Sarah held her breath as a small medical transport dropped out of FTL, barely 2 light minutes from the attack site. The UNSS Hope, one of Earth's oldest serving hospital ships, had apparently detected the Artaxian distress signal. What happened next made Sarah's scientific training war with her eyes. The Void Stalker, a creature known for pursuing prey across entire star systems, simply withdrew. Its crystalline form folded in on itself with liquid grace, and it vanished back into dark space, leaving the wounded Artaxian vessel intact enough for rescue. Dr. Chen. Director Walsh's voice carried that familiar tone of skepticism as he reviewed her report 3 hours later. "You're suggesting this marks the 47th documented case of Void Stalkers avoiding human contact." "Not just avoiding," Sarah argued, spreading holographic data across his office. "Look at the pattern. In every recorded instance over the past 30 years, they'd break off attacks when human ships appear. They've hit vessels from every known spacefaring species except us. The statistical probability of this being random is still within acceptable margins of coincidence." Walsh cut her off, closing the holographic displays with a wave. "The Council's leading experts agree that Void Stalkers are apex predators, nothing more. They don't make conscious choices about prey selection." Sarah bit back her frustration, then explained the Galileo incident. When the Void Stalker attacked that Merax colony fleet, it carefully extracted the human exchange students before. "Dr. Chen." Walsh's tone turned sharp. "Your research proposal is denied. I won't have the Curiosity's resources wasted chasing conspiracy theories when we have real work to do." Dismissed. Sarah waited until ship's night to access her private terminal, her quarters illuminated only by the soft blue glow of stellar cartography displays. She was adding the day's incident to her unofficial database when her screen flickered. Text appeared in an ancient command prompt. "Your obese is your vehion." "Correct." "Pattern." "Intentional." "Reason." "Older than your records." Her fingers hovered over the keys as she ran through security protocols in her head. This shouldn't be possible. The Curiosity systems were quantum encrypted. Yet there was another message. "They are what we did. Passed through you generations. Price of peace paid in blood and wisdom." Before she could respond, her terminal discovered an embedded file within the text stream. It contained a single image, a cave painting, carbon dated to roughly 50,000 years ago. The crude figures depicted tall, crystalline forms surrounded by primitive humans, but the humans weren't fleeing. They were standing their ground. Sarah's hand shook as she began composing a new research proposal. She would need better evidence this time, something Walsh and the Council couldn't dismiss. Because if she was right, humanity's entire understanding of their place in the cosmos was about to change. In the darkness of space outside her window, something crystalline briefly caught the starlight. The containment facility's alarms screamed as Sarah watched the Void Stalker's ship pierce Kepler 186's atmosphere. Its crystalline hull glowed orange with entry heat, yet the trajectory showed precise course corrections. This was no crash. It was a landing. All non-human personnel, evacuate immediately. Colony Director Rodriguez ordered over the general frequency. I repeat, all non-human personnel must. The Void Stalker's ship executed a perfect spiral descent, bleeding off speed in a manner that suggested intimate knowledge of human landing protocols. It touched down exactly 20 meters from the facility's main containment chamber, close enough to shake the observation windows, but far enough to avoid structural damage. Security teams Alpha through Delta, hold your positions, Rodriguez commanded. The assembled guards, all human, raised their pulse rifles as the ship's hull began to shift and flow like liquid glass. 3 Maxillian security consultants burst into the observation room. Director, you must allow us to terminate the creature, the lead consultant chittered. Our species has documented experience with. The Void Stalker emerged. Sarah had studied countless grainy images of these beings, but none captured their true nature. Its crystalline body constantly shifted between states of matter, somehow both solid and fluid. Neural tendrils that could pierce battleship armor now moved with surgical precision, testing the air. The creature stood nearly 4 stories tall, yet moved with impossible grace. By the Council's authority, we will handle this. The Maxillian consultant raised his disruptor weapon. The Void Stalker's head snapped toward them with frightening speed. No, Sarah lunged for the consultant, but she was too late. The Maxillian fired. What happened next occurred in heartbeats. The Void Stalker's form blurred. 3 precise strikes. The Maxillian consultants lay dead, their bodies unmarked except for tiny crystalline shards in their neural centers. Yet when Sarah stumbled back, the creature's tendril stopped millimeters from her face. Hold fire. Rodriguez's order crackled through comms as security teams tracked the creature. All human personnel hold positions. The Void Stalker slowly withdrew its tendril. It folded its massive form into a less threatening posture and did something unprecedented. It extended a crystalline appendage toward the containment chamber's door in what could only be described as a gesture of submission. Director, Sarah found her voice. Permission to begin preliminary containment procedures. Hours later, Sarah stood before the creature's holding cell, protected by energy fields rated to contain stellar plasma. The Void Stalker watched her with sensory organs that defied classification, its form rippling with complex patterns. Dr. Chen, Dr. Patel, her xenobiology colleague, rushed in. You need to see the ship's cargo hold. We found specimens, samples from 17 different species, some thought extinct. But his voice trembled, not a single human sample, not one drop of human blood or tissue. Sarah turned back to the creature. You've been collecting genetic samples, studying species, but why not us? What makes humans different? The Void Stalker's crystalline surface erupted in cascading patterns of light. Sarah's tablet began receiving massive data bursts. Before she could process them, the facility's AI announced, "Priority message from Galactic Council. Beginning playback." The holographic form of High Counselor Vex materialized. Colony Director Rodriguez, you will initiate immediate quarantine protocols. No data leaves the facility. The creature must remain contained until our delegation arrives. The Council is invoking Emergency Protocol 7 concerning the preservation of galactic stability. Sarah looked at her tablet. Through the noise of raw data, she glimpsed fragments, star charts older than human civilization, genetic sequences that appeared simultaneously alien and familiar, and mathematical proofs that made her head spin. The Void Stalker pressed a tendril against the containment field, causing ripples of energy. Its surface displayed a pattern Sarah had seen before, in that ancient cave painting. The pattern grew more complex, and Sarah realized with dawning wonder that it wasn't just a display. It was writing. And some deep, ancestral part of her brain recognized the symbols. The Galactic Council representatives arrived in a ship that seemed designed to intimidate, its black hull absorbing light like a cosmic wound. Sarah watched from the containment level's observation post as 6 different species of diplomatic officials filed through decontamination. "The creature must be terminated," High Counselor Vex stated without preamble, his crystalline carapace, so different from the Void Stalker's living crystal, clicking as he moved. "This is not a negotiation." "With respect, Counselor," Sarah interjected, "this is the first captured specimen in recorded history. The scientific value alone." "Dr. Chen," Vex's secondary eyes fixed on her, "your species' presence in galactic affairs spans barely 2 centuries. The Void Stalkers have hunted among the stars for millions of years. They have driven 17 known species to extinction. 23 more chose mass exodus to escape them. The facility's alerts shattered the tension. Red emergency lights strobed as the AI announced, "Containment breach in progress." The Void Stalker had somehow phased through fields designed to contain plasma. Instead of attacking, it moved with precise purpose through the facility's corridors. Security feeds showed it accessing terminals, interfacing directly with computer systems through its crystalline tendrils. "Evacuate immediately," Vex ordered, his staff already retreating. "The specimen will harvest all biological material in the facility." But Sarah noticed something odd. The creature wasn't heading for the residential sections or the labs. It moved directly to the colony's historical archives, its massive form somehow squeezing through corridors barely large enough to accommodate it. "Doctor," Rodriguez's voice crackled through her comm, "you need to see this." The archive's security feed showed the Void Stalker methodically accessing historical databases, its neural tendrils connected to terminal after terminal, downloading centuries of human history. It paid particular attention to evolutionary records, archaeological findings, and early space exploration data. 6 hours, Sarah whispered later, reviewing the footage. It spent 6 hours studying our history before returning to its cell. No damage to the facility. No casualties. "Impossible," one of the council's xenobiologists muttered. "They're apex predators. They don't study. They don't learn. They hunt." "Then explain this." Sarah projected a hologram of the creature's cell. The Void Stalker had arranged its crystalline form to mimic the double helix of human DNA, but with modifications that made Sarah's mind spin. Within the structure, complex mathematical equations flowed like living things. "Enough." Vex stepped forward. "By council authority, we are assuming control of this facility and the specimen. Human forces will withdraw immediately." The Void Stalker's reaction was instantaneous. Its entire form shifted to opacity, hardening into weapons-grade crystal. Neural tendrils whipped through the air with deadly precision, stopping mere centimeters from the council members' vital organs. "Please," Sarah stepped between them, her heart pounding. "Let me try to communicate with it. It's been responding to human presence differently. There has to be a reason." The creature immediately relaxed its aggressive posture, its form becoming translucent again. A new pattern emerged on its surface, the same ancient symbols Sarah had glimpsed before, but now organized into clear sequences. "Director Rodriguez," Vex's voice carried barely controlled fear, "are you aware that your species is somehow commanding a Void Stalker?" "Not commanding," Sarah corrected, studying the symbols. "Communicating. Look at these patterns. They're not random. They match fragments found in human archaeological sites dating back 50 millennia. We didn't notice before because we were looking at them wrong. They're not just symbols." She trailed off as her tablet decoded part of the sequence. The translation made her blood run cold. The Void Stalker wasn't just writing. It was reciting something. A story passed down through uncounted generations, written into the very genetic memory of its species. A story about humanity. And now, after 50,000 years, it had returned to tell them what their ancestors had done. Sarah's research team descended into the Philippine cave system as ancient limestone walls pressed in around them. Their scanners, calibrated to detect Void Stalker energy signatures, pulsed with increasing frequency. "Dr. Chen," her assistant Marcus called out. his voice echoing off the walls. These energy readings, they're identical to the patterns we found at the KT boundary layer. Sarah paused, letting that sink in. The KT boundary marked the extinction of the dinosaurs. Her team had discovered similar energy signatures at every major extinction event in Earth's history. But the patterns suggested defensive formations, not attacks. Here, Dr. Yoshida, their archaeologist, knelt by a narrow fissure. The cave opens up ahead, but look at these marks. She traced her fingers over grooves in the rock. These aren't natural formations. Something cut through this limestone with surgical precision. The passage widened into a vast chamber. Their lights revealed walls covered in primitive art, hunting scenes, tribal gatherings, and above them all, crystalline forms that made Sarah's heart race. The drawing showed humans and void stalkers, not in combat, but in poses suggesting cooperation. Over here, Marcus's voice cracked with excitement. We need the dating equipment now. In an alcove, partially embedded in the cave wall, sat a perfectly preserved void stalker skull. Its crystalline structure caught their lights and scattered them in impossible patterns across the chamber. But it was what lay beside it that made Sarah's hands tremble. A stone tablet, its surface divided into two distinct sections. On one side, primitive human markings. On the other, the same symbols the captured void stalker had displayed in its cell. Carbon dating places the skull at approximately 50,000 years old, Dr. Yoshida reported, studying her instruments. The tablet appears to be from the same period. But look at this. She pointed to where the crystal skull interfaced with the cave wall. These mineral formations, they're not random growth. The crystal was still active when it was placed here. It was growing into the rock, deliberately preserving something. Sarah connected her tablet to the scanning equipment. The crystal structure, it's not just preserving data, it's still active. These patterns match the neural activity we've recorded from our captured specimen. This isn't just a skull, it's a database. The chamber's air grew thick with tension as Sarah's tablet began decoding the crystal's contents. Images flashed across her screen. Star maps from before humans had names for the constellations, genetic sequences that seemed to bridge the gap between human and void stalker biology, and mathematical proofs that made modern quantum physics look primitive. Sarah, Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Look at these dates. The void stalker visits, they align perfectly with major leaps in human development. The control of fire, the development of complex tools, the first evidence of symbolic thinking and art. They weren't just watching us. Sarah breathed. They were protecting us, guiding us. But why? Her tablet pinged. The crystal skull was projecting new data, responding to their presence. A holographic sequence materialized in the chamber center, showing primitive humans encountering a void stalker pack. But instead of running, the humans stood their ground. They offered food to injured creatures while fighting fiercely against those that threatened their tribe. The translation's coming through, Dr. Yoshida announced. The tablet, it's some kind of record. A pact. She paused, her voice filled with wonder. The first half, in human markings, it's a promise to remember. The void stalker half, it's a promise to protect. Sarah stared at the skull, its crystal structure still humming with ancient data. We didn't just survive them, she whispered. We changed them, taught them something no other species had. She reached for her comm unit. The council needed to see this. In the darkness behind them, something moved. A crystalline form unfolded from where it had waited, perhaps for millennia, guarding this chamber of secrets. It was time for humanity to remember. The captured void stalker's song filled the containment facility's observation chamber, its crystalline form vibrating with frequencies that made Sarah's bones hum. The creature had begun singing 3 hours ago, its notes following mathematical patterns that matched humanity's oldest known musical scales. It's not random, Sarah told the assembled team of xenolinguists and musicologists. These harmonic sequences, they're identical to fragments found in prehistoric human music. Cave acoustics dating back 40,000 years show these exact resonance patterns. Dr. Lakshmi, their lead musicologist, adjusted her instruments. The underlying mathematical structure. It's like it's speaking in pure mathematics, but using scales our ancestors somehow knew. She paused, listening. There's more. These patterns, they repeat across different cultures, different continents. They're in Aboriginal songlines, ancient Greek harmonics, African tribal music. The Voidstalker's song shifted, its crystalline body pulsing with light that matched the acoustic waves. Sarah's translation software began picking up patterns within patterns, layers of meaning encoded in both sound and light. Look at this. Marcus pointed to his display. Every sequence contains fragments of proto-human languages, not just one region, all of them. It's like the creature carries a linguistic database of human development in its genetic memory. The first coherent translation appeared on their screens. We remember the first song, the song of fire and wisdom, the song of those who fought not just with strength, but with choice. Dr. Chen, one of the xenolinguists, called out, "We're detecting variations in the crystal structure itself. The creature isn't just singing. It's rewriting its own molecular arrangement to match the frequencies of human speech." Sarah watched in amazement as the Voidstalker's form shifted, creating surfaces that caught and reflected sound in increasingly complex ways. The translation continued. "Your ancestors taught us harmony, showed us that prey could be protector, that hunter could be guardian. Each generation carries the song, but only now do we understand its words." The creature's neural tendrils began moving in precise patterns, matching the rhythms of its song. Dr. Lakshmi gasped. These gestures, they match prehistoric cave art patterns. It's not just singing our music, it's recreating our earliest attempts at communication. A new sequence began, this one causing all their instruments to resonate in perfect synchronization. "We were hunger without purpose, death without meaning. Your kind showed us choice, showed us that strength lives in protecting, not just consuming. The price was paid in blood, but the reward was consciousness itself." Sarah's hands trembled as she adjusted the scanning equipment. The song, it's activating dormant structures in the creature's genetic code. Look at these protein sequences. They're reconfiguring to match patterns we found in human DNA. The Voidstalker's song reached a crescendo, its body now a symphony of light, sound, and shifting crystal. The final translation emerged. "We carry your song in our blood, your choices in our bones. Every child of our kind is born knowing the melody of humanity's wisdom. We do not hunt your kind because you are not prey. You are the teachers who gave us the gift of choice." As the song faded, Sarah noticed something extraordinary. The creature's crystalline structure had permanently changed, now bearing patterns that matched both Voidstalker and human genetic sequences. It had physically transformed itself to communicate this ancient truth. "Doctor," Marcus whispered, "the Council's ships are entering orbit. They're demanding immediate access to this data." But Sarah barely heard him. She was studying the final harmonic patterns, her mind racing. The song hadn't just been a message, it was a key. A key to understanding why humanity's development had taken such an unusual path among galactic species. The Voidstalker turned its sensory organs toward her, its form still humming with residual frequencies. It had more to share, and Sarah realized with sudden clarity that the song was just the beginning. The true revelation lay in understanding why beings of living crystal had chosen to preserve human music in their very genome. The answer would change everything they thought they knew about both species' evolution. The holographic reconstruction filled the cave chamber, showing events from 50 millennia ago. Sarah and her team watched as primitive humans encountered the first Voidstalker fleet. The creature's crystalline forms towered over the ancient humans, their neural tendrils crackling with energy that could shred battleships. This recording was preserved in the Crystal Skull's matrix, Sarah explained to the assembled council representatives. "Watch what happens next." Instead of fleeing, the humans stood their ground. They carried spears of fire-hardened wood and stone tools, primitive weapons against cosmic predators. But it wasn't their weapons that changed everything. There, Dr. Yoshida pointed as the scene unfolded. Look at their behavior pattern. A void stalker, wounded from some unknown battle, crashed near the human settlement. The human's reaction defied every survival instinct. While some maintained defensive positions with raised spears, others approached the injured creature. They offered food, precious meat from their own limited supplies. Impossible, High Counselor Vex whispered. No species has ever. The hologram showed the wounded void stalker's neural patterns shifting, its crystalline structure reorganizing as it encountered something entirely new. Compassion combined with warrior strength. The humans demonstrated both the will to fight and the wisdom to show mercy. The protein sequences we found, Sarah continued, show the exact moment their species began to change. The void stalker's neural crystals are designed to adapt and evolve rapidly. This encounter literally rewired their species' consciousness. The recording shifted to show subsequent encounters. Void stalkers defending human settlements from massive predators. Crystalline forms standing guard over human migrations. Neural tendrils carefully teaching humans about fire, tools, and survival skills. They didn't just protect us, Marcus added, displaying genetic data. Their presence accelerated our development. The crystal formations we found at major evolutionary landmarks weren't coincidental. They were deliberately placed to guide our species' growth. The captured void stalker in the containment cell responded to the recording, its form resonating with the ancient crystal's frequencies. New data streamed across their screens, records of countless interventions throughout human history. Every time humanity faced extinction-level threats, Sarah explained, the void stalkers intervened, but subtly, carefully, protecting without conquering. They learned that from us, the balance between power and restraint. Dr. Lakshmi's instruments picked up new harmonics. The musical patterns are evolving. It's not just communication anymore. These frequencies are activating dormant genetic structures in both species. The hologram showed the final piece of the ancient encounter. The humans, having helped heal the wounded void stalker, performed a ritual. They sang and danced around fires, their movements and voices creating patterns that the crystalline beings absorbed and preserved in their very structure. This wasn't just cultural exchange, Sarah said softly. This was the moment when predator became protector. The void stalkers experienced something they'd never encountered in millions of years of evolution, a species that could both fight and nurture, kill and heal, survive and show mercy. The recording ended with a scene that left even the council representatives in stunned silence. Humans and void stalkers, together, defending Earth from a massive meteor impact. The crystalline beings used their powers not to hunt, but to preserve. We've had it backward, Sarah concluded. They didn't avoid hunting humans because they feared us. They protected us because we showed them a better way to exist. Our ancestors gave them something more valuable than prey. We gave them consciousness beyond pure instinct. The captured void stalker's form pulsed with confirmation. Its neural patterns now matched exactly with the ancient recording, proving an unbroken line of genetic memory stretching back 50,000 years. A memory of the day when humanity's dual nature, warrior and healer, fighter and protector, transformed the galaxy's most feared predators into its most dedicated guardians. In the depths of space, countless crystalline forms stirred, their ancient programming responding to the awakening of this long-buried truth. The time had come to repay a debt 50 millennia in the making. The Galactic Council's warships dropped out of FTL Drive above Earth, their weapons already charged. Sarah watched from the Curiosity's observation deck as thousands of ships moved into attack formation. The Council claims they've detected abnormal genetic markers activating in human populations across 17 colonies, Director Rodriguez reported, his hologram flickering with interference. They're calling it a biological crisis. Before Sarah could respond, The ship's AI announced, "Unknown energy weapon charging. Trajectory indicates Earth as target. Estimated impact in 15 minutes." It's not a weapon, Sarah realized, studying the readings. It's a genetic resequencer designed to unravel specific DNA patterns. Her hands flew over the controls, analyzing the data. They're trying to sever the connection between humans and void stalkers before it fully awakens. The first reports flooded in from Earth and the colonies. Millions of humans experiencing unprecedented psychological phenomena. Shared visions of ancient battles. Knowledge of star patterns that humans had never mapped. And most alarming to the Council, an innate understanding of void stalker crystalline technology. The dormant markers, markers transmitted from the research base. They're not just activating, they're completing a process that began 50,000 years ago. Look at these neural scans. The data showed human brains developing new structures, patterns that matched void stalker crystal matrices. Not an invasion or manipulation, but the fulfillment of an ancient partnership. All ships, open fire, the Council commander ordered. The resequencer beam lanced toward Earth, its energy signature designed to unravel the very genetic memories the void stalkers had preserved for millennia. Then space itself seemed to shatter. Void stalker ships emerged from dark space by the thousands, their crystalline forms reflecting starlight in dazzling arrays. But these weren't the organic shapes of hunters. Their vessels matched human design principles, a perfect fusion of crystal engineering and human inspiration. "My God," Rodriguez whispered, "they've been waiting. Preparing." The Void Stalker fleet moved with impossible precision, their ships forming a geodesic sphere around Earth. As the Council's resequencer beam struck, the crystalline ships resonated in perfect harmony. The beam's energy was caught, channeled, and transformed. Sarah's instruments went wild. The genetic markers. The beam isn't destroying them. It's completing them. The Council weaponized exactly the frequency needed to finish what our ancestors started. Across human space, people staggered as ancient memories flooded their consciousness. Not just genetic memories of past encounters, but an understanding of crystal engineering that surpassed anything in known space. The Void Stalkers hadn't just protected humanity. They had preserved human technological innovations within their very structure, waiting for the day when both species were ready. "Dr. Chen." A familiar crystalline voice resonated through the ship's comm. The captured Void Stalker, now free and commanding part of the defense fleet, addressed her. "Your ancestors knew this day would come. They encoded the knowledge we would need within both our species." The Council fleet hung motionless as human-designed ships of living crystal moved into defensive formations. Their weapons weren't powered by destruction, but by the same principle that had first transformed the Void Stalkers, the perfect balance of protection and power. Humanity's gift to us wasn't just consciousness, the Void Stalker continued. It was purpose. We learned to protect rather than simply hunt. And now, after 50,000 years of preparation, we return that gift. The crystalline ships began transmitting data to every human vessel and colony. Schematics for technologies that blended human innovation with Void Stalker crystal engineering. Medical advances that could extend human life by centuries. Designs for ships that could traverse galaxies. "You see now," Sarah addressed the Council fleet, "why they never hunted us. We didn't tame them. We didn't defeat them. We showed them a better way to exist, and they chose to evolve. Today, that evolution comes full circle." As the Council fleet retreated, Sarah watched human and Void Stalker ships moving in perfect synchronization. The galaxy's apex predators had become humanity's most powerful allies, and together they had just rewritten the balance of power in known space. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The real question was, what would two species, both transformed by an ancient act of compassion, create together? 3 months after the Council's failed attack, Sarah stood in Earth's new crystal archive, surrounded by terminals that merged human and Void Stalker technology. The crystalline walls pulsed with stored knowledge, each facet containing millennia of shared history. "The genetic analysis is complete," Marcus reported, projecting a double helix that sparkled with crystalline structures. "The markers we share with the Void Stalkers weren't engineered or implanted. They evolved naturally in both species, driven by choice and interaction." Sarah watched human and Void Stalker scientists working together in the archive's upper levels. Their neural patterns, displayed on nearby monitors, showed synchronization that should have been impossible between such different species. "It was never about dominance or submission," she explained to the assembled xenobiologists from across the galaxy. "When our ancestors encountered the Void Stalkers, both species were at crucial evolutionary crossroads. Humanity was developing complex social structures, learning to balance aggression with cooperation. The Void Stalkers were the galaxy's perfect predators, but without purpose beyond hunting." The archive's main crystal matrix activated, displaying scenes from that first encounter. The images were clearer now, enhanced by the combined understanding of both species. "Humanity's gift wasn't just showing mercy to an injured predator," Sarah continued. "It was demonstrating that true strength comes from choice. Our ancestors chose to help when they could have fled, fought when they needed to protect their own, and showed wisdom in knowing the difference." The displays showed new data. Void Stalker neural patterns becoming more complex after contact with humans, developing structures that enabled deeper consciousness. Parallel changes in human biology, our brains adapting to process information in ways that matched crystalline patterns. "The Void Stalkers didn't just protect us through history," Marcus added. "They preserve human innovations within their crystal matrix. Every technological leap we made, they stored and refined it, waiting for the day when both species would be ready for true collaboration." In orbit, the first joint species ships were taking shape. Crystal vessels grown around human-designed cores, guided by crews whose neural patterns synchronized across species barriers. They could traverse dark space itself, using principles that neither species could have developed alone. "But the greatest gift wasn't technological," Sarah said softly, watching a group of human children communicating effortlessly with young Void Stalkers, their neural patterns harmonizing naturally. "It was evolutionary. Two species choosing to grow together, each making the other stronger not through conquest or competition, but through cooperation." The archive's crystals resonated with a new frequency as the captured Void Stalker, now Earth's chief ambassador to its species, joined them. Its form had evolved further, displaying patterns that bridged the gap between crystalline and organic life. "We were the galaxy's perfect hunters," it communicated, its thoughts clear in their minds. "You were the galaxy's perfect innovators. Apart, we were incomplete. Together, we become something new, something neither species could achieve alone." The displays showed the future possibilities. Hybrid technologies that could heal dead worlds, ships that could explore other galaxies, and developments that would reshape civilization itself. But more importantly, they showed two species growing together, their differences becoming strengths rather than barriers. "The Council feared we would become living weapons," Sarah concluded. "Instead, we became living proof that evolution's greatest leaps come not from conflict, but from choice. Our ancestors chose to help an injured predator. The Void Stalkers chose to become protectors rather than hunters. And now, we choose to move forward together." Outside the archive, crystal ships danced through Earth's sky, their forms catching sunlight in impossible patterns. Each one carried the genetic memory of that first choice made 50,000 years ago, when humanity showed the galaxy's apex predators that true strength lies not in the power to destroy, but in the wisdom to protect. And in the depths of space, countless stars awaited the arrival of this new combined civilization, born not from conquest or submission, but from an ancient act of compassion that had transformed both hunter and prey into something far greater than either could have become alone. The mystery was solved, but the true story was just beginning.